Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you could just let me know if you can see and hear and everything looks and sounds okay, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Just do that. Let's get started, and let's just quickly run through the usual routine. If you've got any questions during this live stream, just put in the chat hashtag Q, the letter Q, just so I can easily find out then when there's going to be any kind of questions, and we can go back and take a look at those. If you want to target either myself or Imran, then you can easily just put hashtag WPTuts, hashtag Imran, or hashtag whatever you want to put down there for Imran. Web Squadron, whichever one you want. I'll pick it out anyway. So, as always, I just want to say a good evening to my guest this evening, who's become, well, pretty much a regular now on the show, which is good evening, Imran. I hope you're doing well. And, good evening. Thanks for joining me again tonight at very short notice.
No problem, Paul. Always a pleasure to be here. You know, I feel like taking over and just kicking you off the channel and just, like taking all your subscribers, but it's great to be here.
There you go. Cry on. I'll see you later. Hey, look, we're sort of going to have a nice sort of carapace. Now, come on, that's not fair, is it? Straight away. I mean, can you see this? This is the quality of people you're bringing over to the live stream, Imran. I mean, what am I going to say? Huh? So, as you can probably tell tonight, we're kind of going to talk about not so much the recent sort of beta release of Elementor that I covered in today's video. More a case of, I just want to sort of talk about, has Elementor kind of stopped innovating, and what do we kind of see moving forward? Are we sort of waiting for version 4 to be the savior of the direction and all the exciting things that we've been promised for the last couple of years? Or do we think it's going to be a little bit of a damp squib and just kind of fizzle into life and just kind of like slowly move along? So that's kind of what we want to talk about. But as always, we want to get your questions into the chat tonight. So make sure that you do hashtag Q for any questions as we go through, and we'll take a look at those as we go through the different topics. But first of all, Imran, have you seen the video I put up today?
I have, and I loved it, and I think it's the most fun and animated and down to earth I've seen Paul in a long time, and I just thought it was great. I know a lot of other people loved it as well, and it was just few times I've watched a video from start to finish smiling. It was just a lovely, and it was weird almost because, I mean, I'm saying a bit more than I should now, but not only was I smiling because of how you presented it, but I was also angry inside about 3.7. So I'm kind of letting the cat out the bag a little bit about my thoughts on version 3.7.
That's fine. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of time that we can talk about 3.7 and beyond. But like I say, tonight is all about just discussing Elementor, where we think it is, the good things, the bad things, but please do let us know your comments. And let me just quickly go through and say a couple of good evenings, because I always like to do that anyway. So Michael Wright, always good to see you in. Phil L from Spiderweb, thank you very much for the kind words on the video earlier on. That was a lot of fun to do, and I'm kind of looking forward to doing more like that, or maybe different topics, and just have a little bit of light-hearted fun. It's much more fun than just being all dry and educational all the time. So Eddie Werder, good to see you in. Soren, David Walls, good to see you as well. I'm going to do as many of these as I can. As always though, if you enjoy the live stream, you do get value from what myself and Imran are doing, please do hit that thumbs up, because it does tell YouTube that you like what we're doing, and it means a lot to us as well. So please do that. Carapace, good to see you in tonight. Thank you very much. We can't talk about cancel culture because we probably get cancelled. Leather Class, good to see you in as well. Christoph, we've got Stratos, always a pleasure. Tyree, wow, there's a lot in. Pixter, good evening to you as well. How are you doing, COVID ladies? Well, that's a little bit sexist, isn't it? Well, if anybody doesn't know, both myself and Imran are currently testing positive for COVID. I mean, I'm sure we've probably tested positive for a few other things in the past. Obviously, all about more things. But we are both testing positive for COVID. But thankfully, you can't actually catch that from a live stream, or I don't think you can. But if you do...
We don't know.
I do apologise. Good evening, Laith. Good evening, Melissa. Thank you very much for joining us. Mark, good to see you in as well. Wow, there's a lot of people in. George is in. Daniel's in tonight. We've got Eddie in. Tyree. Jimmy's in. Good evening to you, Jimmy. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for the little article you put out the other day. That was absolutely amazing. Pez, good to see you in as well. Wow. Eduardo, John, There's lots of people in tonight. What can I say? They all are here to tell us that we are absolutely wrong about anything to do with Elementor. So that's all I want to say. So first of all, let's just start off with a really simple question. Do you think Elementor is too big to fail? That's the question.
I'm going to say no, because I think that even though they're big, even though they are, the world's leading page builder and they've got a massive audience and user base, there is no expectation. So I'm going to compare them to Apple. There was a point in time when Apple had the iPhone when it first came out and it was doing really well, but it wasn't innovative. And then the Samsung phones all came out. And then Apple started to suffer a bit, but then Apple picked up its game a bit. And the trouble is, though, is that Apple and Samsung are kind of the leaders. And you've got a few others, but they're just they're not as big as, say, Samsung and Apple. But when you take Elementor right now, and yes, you could say, well, Divi is not as big. Visual Composer, all these other things, they're all around there, but they're not as big. But then you got things like Bricks coming out. And I'm not a big Gutenberg user, but what if in 2 or 3 years' time, suddenly something amazing happens over there with other add-ons and stuff like that? And what if by the time you get to Bricks version 2 or something, they start to do a lot of what Elementor currently does, or might take a bit longer? If Elementor doesn't pick up its game and start to be as innovative as it was maybe a year or two ago, there is a chance they will stagnate. And when they stagnate, we start to look. It's a bit like when you have a house. You love your house, but you get a little bit bored sometimes. And how many of you are on property websites looking at houses? I don't intend to move, but you can't help but look anyway. So there is a danger that there's so much stuff that we would love to see in Elementor that we currently go to third-party plugins to fill a gap, or we have to do some code snippets or something to fill a gap. And if they don't provide that within the native tool, look, you talk about Bricks a lot. Karapos talks about Bricks a lot. I was looking at the website, and if it's now saying to me that I could build a website and not have to worry so much about optimization tools. Well, hold on a second. Does that mean I can get rid of all Toptimize, asset cleanup, maybe fastest cache and a few other stuff? All of a sudden, my brain starts to go, oh, could I drop out 5 or 6 extra plugins on my website now? And I think that's the thing. So without going on and on and on about it, there's so much stuff Elementor could do. In fact, I will name them. I'll name them. They could stop us having widgets loaded, fully loaded that we're not using in the website. Yep. Conditional calculated logic, mega menus. They're the only things that are coming to mind. Flexbox container and stuff like that.
The loop builder, conditional logic for
the loop builder, exactly,
for dynamic data. I mean, to sort of keep with your sort of train of thought there. I mean, if you consider something as simple as they've given us the ability to have dynamic data, but the problem with dynamic data is lots of that can be optional. And what happens when someone doesn't fill something out because it's optional, we still get the information, maybe a fallback if we use it, which isn't particularly elegant anyway. And we end up with this sort of blank space, which looks a little bit rubbish. Simple things. And you can't tell me that that's something that would be particularly difficult to add into the code of a plugin like Elementor. I mean, you'd think it's relatively basic. To take it as a sort of a simple example of how I can't see why it wouldn't be easy to put in there, is when you think about it, there's various different things now when you use, for example, the call to action. If you delete the text for a button, the button disappears.
Yes.
Well, obviously there's a form of conditional logic in Elementor, and there's the ability to use conditional logic. If this is empty, if it is set, is null kind of thing, then you do nothing. You take the space away, you take the code away, so there's no button code in there. Why can't that just be extended out to any dynamic data field? Surely the logic is incredibly simple. It's just is set. If it exists, display it. If it doesn't, don't echo it out. If it's set, if not, echo nothing.
And I don't have a great answer for that, because I just sometimes wonder if, we've mentioned it before, but what is the roadmap? What is the decision making about what features they are going to have or not have? And I sometimes feel like some of the features, they had a massive list, and every week they add a new item, but they don't look at them in priority. They just do them in order as they added them on the list. So maybe something they added on the list 2 years ago, they finally got around to doing it, and they'll just follow the list. They're not kind of going, well, this item has been on for 2 years, but no one ever really wants it. But this item, they're crying out for it. Let's put all our attention into it and let's sort it out now. But I just think that, if other page builder solutions start to bring in things, so like bricks, if we stay on that one, if they bring in all of this, conditional logic and stuff like that, the facility to do things more dynamically as well than what we currently get, and it's great for page speed. So there's less effort. There's nothing wrong with effort. We shouldn't say you should not put effort in. You should do. But if it means that, if we take into example, one of the things about Elementor and loads of page builders is they say anyone can do it. Anyone can build a website. But a lot of those people that think they can do it don't understand layout and placement and your WebP images, your Google fonts and all of that. And then they suffer with their page speed. But if you can have a page builder that takes a lot of that thinking out of the picture, so it's already covering you and helping you out, why wouldn't you want to go to that? Mm-hmm. So I think that Elementor is big, and there is always a danger that when you become so big, you start to feel like you cannot be toppled. You are unstoppable and everyone else is below you. But as we know, as history shows, every time there is a major look at Woolworths. If you're in the UK, we all look at Woolworths. Look what happened to them. Everyone can fall the minute something new comes along. Nokia.
Absolutely.
Before the iPhone, we all had Nokias, right? Yeah. Now,
the 3310.
Exactly.
Well, you consider how big Nokia was, to use that one. Go back to the original Matrix. All it was in there was everybody wanted the Matrix banana phone. It was a Nokia, simple thing, but everybody wanted it, and they were stupid money. But to kind of go back to your sort of point, for example, and we'll use bricks as an example. We'll also use breakdance because, yes, there's one thing that people have sort of said is that they have the benefit of hindsight. They have the benefit of look at the competition, seeing what's working, seeing what's not working. But then again, so did Elementor. So does Elementor. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, I know it's got this sort of code overhead and all that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is, if they want to stay current, they have to focus on some of these things. At some point, market share is going to dip. And I sort of asked the question earlier on today. It's all well and good to say you've got whatever it currently is, like 15 million users using Elementor. Massive part of that is because it's free. Yes, you've got the pro version, but I wonder how many people are actually using the free versus the pro. Plus, to go back to Karapos's question or comment earlier on about Visual Composer, how massive that was massive for one key reason. It was included in pretty much every single theme on Theme Forest. And now that's kind of been pushed to one side, and obviously the WP Bakery rebranding, all that kind of stuff really hurt them. But now if you look, a massive portion of themes on the two, like Theme Forest, they've moved away from Visual Composer and they use Elementor. Well, all those are bolstering those figures. When someone downloads a theme that they purchased, and as part of that, Elementor is installed as it, you kind of, like most people, won't uninstall it because if they go into Theme Forest, chances are they're new to working with websites. They've seen something that looks really good and they want to recreate or emulate it. So they'll use the tools that they've seen in the way that is, and once it's installed, it installs everything. I mean, Astra's another good example. Most themes these days will come with the option to install Gutenberg and usually Elementor free.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like I would love to know the sort of like the split between the pro version and the free version. And I know a lot of people have sort of said along the same lines, it's like, the thing is, the reason that they don't want to include a lot of these things we're talking about, like we said, the loop builder and those kinds of things, is because they're aiming at the easier market. Well, that kind of goes into juxtaposition with their pricing changes, was it last year, the year before, where they've suddenly gone, we're not going to charge the $199 now for the 1,000 licenses. Now if you want that, you're an agency. So therefore we're going to charge you £1,000 or $1,000. Yeah. Well, most agencies, I would assume, are not going to be building basic WordPress websites with simple Elementor tools. They're going to want to have more advanced things. Agencies are going to charge good money when they're being charged $1,000, £1,000, whatever, for 1,000 licenses. They need to recoup that cost as quick as possible. They don't go, once we've sold 1,000 licenses, we'll at $1, we've made our money. No, they need to make that money back as quick as possible. So they're realistically going to be looking at more advanced sites and not your typical little brochure site they're going to sell for 500 quid, $500. So I don't really buy a lot of the logic that's kind of thrown around with these different arguments about various different aspects of why Elementor isn't doing certain things and why features are not being added in. And to go back to your roadmap, I'm on a roll now, so bear with me. On a roll.
No, I can hear, yeah.
But to go back to your roadmap, I mean, one of the arguments that I had today was, the thing is, they got so many competitors, they can't put their roadmap out there because it'll be stolen. What a stupid concept. You can't put your prices out there because your competitors will take your prices. That's life. They're already playing catch up in a lot of respects. So their roadmap, I mean, other people got roadmaps out there. They could look at what Brick's roadmap is. They could look at what Breakdance's roadmap is. And they could go, that's a good idea. We'll borrow that idea. So it's swings and roundabouts. I really don't buy into it. But one final thing before I hand things back off, because I am on a roll, is, and this is where I was kind of going to start off with, is one of the things that I wanted to sort of say was, like, when you talk about Bricks, for example, and like I said, Breakdance, they have conditional logic included. They have loop builders included. Conditional logic, when it comes to Bricks, currently is code only, but that's a kind of precursor to the actual visual way in which you'll create your conditional options. So all of those core fundamental tools that more professional, users will want are already included in those tools, or they are 95% of the way there and will be in the next probably major revision. So I think I'm just a little bit befuddled with the logic behind not having a roadmap. And if they did have a roadmap, is it a case that they just wouldn't follow it anyway? It's like that thing when you say to your kids, are we there yet, Dad? Just around the next corner. And it's like the next corner never comes. It's like, is that an Elementor roadmap? It just never, it's always just around the corner. I don't get it. So
I mean, so I think that with their roadmap, I mean, what I could say, I would excuse the fact there won't be a roadmap. But if they were to put down, say, a list of the 20 things that they are planning to work on, and we were allowed to upvote them like you can on Bricks, maybe they don't like it. That what if we were to upvote conditional logic, loop builder, and mega menu? Everyone's going for that. They then may feel the obligation and the pressure to deliver that. But if we as a user base understand that that's what we want, and it's now on your radar, we know you might not deliver it straight away, but at least we know that it's on your radar. At the moment, we have no idea what's on their radar. And jumping the gun here, none of us asked for number scrubbing. I'm really sorry. None of us. I did not ask for number scrubbing. Notes. Yeah. So what my plea to them is, just put out the facility for us to vote or upvote. We're not saying you must give us whatever is item number 1, because that it's for you as a company to decide on your resources. We shouldn't be able to tell you, but at least we know that here were the 25 things that were on your radar you're going to work with, so that we then know that the next time there's an update, there's a chance we might get one of these features maybe that comes out. And they could be really smart as well. I often do feel like that when you have upvoting, it's really easy to say, I want that, I want that, I want that. But them as developers, they could quite easily say, well, mega menu, 3 months potential work. This feature here, conditional logic, 2 days worth of work. Well, fine, let's vote that one. That's the one we want. So if we were able to understand the amount of time and resources, accepting that things can change and things can slip, but if we as the users understand that, I think it would massively help them out. And I just want to touch on something you did say, though, about how some people say that, maybe like the reason they don't do the loops and all of that is because they want to keep Elementor really simple. I would say that shouldn't stop them building it in.
No,
because
no.
whether the users use it or not is up to the user. And one of the big reasons why Elementor is so big, and the reason why so many templates and themes on Theme Forest are now built with Elementor, is because of us, the designers, the developers. We're the ones that we're building. We're the ones that we're advising our clients. Let's be honest. How many of our clients knew what page builder they wanted to use? We're the ones pushing it their way to go, no, we want to use Elementor, we want to do that. So there will come a point in time where there may be something that is better, and then we might all start using that. And the minute that happens, well, then Theme Forest and everything else might suddenly switch to that theme. So we're the ones actually pushing it, so it's not, it's just designers, developers. We're the ones who are making it as well known as it is. Look, at the end of the day, you're doing videos, I do videos, and other people. I'm pretty sure if you went and spoke to half your clients, like I know half my clients now, if I say Elementor, they would be like, what? Yeah. They don't even realise their website, even though they know they pay for it, even though they know it's on their invoice. Yeah. They don't even register the Elementor bit. So it's down to us.
That's because most clients don't care. They have a problem, they want a solution, and your job is to provide the solution. It kind of just befuddles me a little bit, the whole way they're going about it. I mean, I totally agree that some form of upvoting would be useful. And I do think that one of the most important things that really is missing, and I think I've answered this in one of the comments online today, is go back to prior to version 2, before there was prior to version 2, prior to version 3, before there was a massive problem when they released that alongside the update to WordPress. I mean, everybody can remember, Elementor 3 gate.
Colours.
Oh yeah, the colours. But prior to that, if you ask me, that's when innovation stopped. But also, that's where a lot of communication stopped. Ben, while not perfect, at least he was in the chat, in the comments and things like that.
He was.
And when you've got 100,000 people in there, it's impossible to answer everybody. So this is no sort of dig at anybody that's actually moderating a group that's that big, because I can imagine it's a bloody nightmare. But the reality is, at least he was a named person that people knew. He was the face originally of Elementor. Even though he wasn't, behind Elementor, he was still the face of Elementor for many, many years. And I think when he left, they lost a massive connection to the community. And I think that's something that, whether people notice it or whether people register it or not, I think that's missing massively in there now. It really has just become a series of unpaid moderators that are doing a great job of what they're doing, but they don't have that connection with the CEO, with Yoni Luxembourg, and with the people that are actually high up and making decisions and choices. And even if they were, they probably couldn't tell us specific things. But because we don't have that link as, buyers, as users, as people that are frustrated, that they want the best for Elementor and the company, all those kinds of things. That to me is something that they really lost out on when Ben left, and they didn't look to sort of replace him with someone to have a very similar kind of role, to have a link between the company people and the community people. Does that make sense to you?
It does, because I felt with Ben, like it was almost like you were able to connect with him, even if it was the first time you were watching a video, and you almost trusted what he said. And what I liked is he steered away from technical jargon. What he did was talk about what's coming. And I know there are some stuff he said was coming which we haven't got yet, but that was because he left not long after he said there might be stuff coming. But I've always felt like he built a rapport with you in the way he connected. What we have now, and I'm not criticizing anything that Elementor do, but what we have now is very technical driven. Whenever we have presentations and webinars, they're more technical. They're more about how to do this, how to do that. Ben did some of that, but he was more about how is this going to help you and how are we listening to you? And whenever there was like so 2 years ago, he was at the Atrium Web Summit event. He was there in between the talks, talking to people. The lounge, when they did the lounge bit, he was there talking to people. And there are some great people at Elementor, but I feel like we're missing that. I really don't want to say it, and I think anyone here who knows how much I love Elementor, and I only work with Elementor, who is the person I trust the most that I can reach out to and get a solid, honest answer? Or am I just going to get the script? And that's the thing I feel at the moment. Am I going to ask a question and get a script? Or am I going to get an honest answer? So, if I go right now, where is the mega menu? Or no, let me reword it. When will the mega menu be out? Am I going to get an honest answer? And I don't think I would.
I think chances are you would probably get the company line, which is, we can't say when, but when it comes out, you're going to love it. That type of answer. And I think all that does is, I mean, if you could see, fair enough, you don't want to give a timeline, and that's understandable because things change, problems arise. We can't say it's going to be X date, time, whatever. But I think one of the biggest problems is where there's the constantly moving goalpost of, it's coming. Yeah, the good example is the AMA, the Ask Me Anything, where they literally said that the loop builder, the container, conditional logic, and I think the mega menu, or at least most of those, were coming in Q3, Q4 of 2021. Yeah. And we're already now in Are we in Q3 now? Yes, we are, aren't we? Yeah, it's 7. Yeah, so Q3 of 2022. Yes, yeah. So we are literally the best part of a year away. The only thing that's actually transpired is 7 months after it was released, we have the container element, which is still in alpha, which still has problems it has had for months. And while people are using this on production sites, it really is not advisable because I think, as we spoke in the last live stream, all you need is for them to make a sweeping change and all your sites go. Yeah. Or for them to turn around and go, we've actually changed our mind. We're not going down the Flexbox route. We're going down the CSS grid route. So all those things that you've built, they're all out the window. So I really would not risk that side of things when it comes to on a live production site. It really is just asking for problems. So I think this is one of the biggest problems, and I think this is where the biggest frustration for a lot of people comes in, is that lack of transparency, the lack of following through on what you say, and you just feel like you're being fobbed off an awful lot. And that does not create trust. That erodes trust. And I think that's where not having someone like Ben there, which people did trust, for better, for worse, they did trust him. And if anybody that had that kind of level of trust, they just turned and said, look, we just want to be honest with you guys. There are problems. There are reasons why it's not coming out like we said it was. Please do bear with us. It is coming, but we can't put a date on it. We just want to make sure that everything is in line, and there's a lot of things going on underneath the hood that probably most people wouldn't understand, but these have a massive impact further on down the line, and we want to make sure those things are in place before we actually release these groundbreaking or these game-changing or these website-breaking features. We just want to make sure that we don't have a repetition of when we released version 3. Can you understand that? There's obviously going to be a portion of people that go, oh, well, you promised it, so it's not here, so you just suck. But the majority of people that are long-term users that understand that what they want is to not have that fear of God put in them when something as big as the container element comes out and is released, will be like, okay, take your time. We'd rather it come out and be a solid release than come out and just cause us headaches and days and weeks of remedial work to get everything back up to where it was. And I think that is one of the things that's probably why so many people are really frustrated with Elementor and the company, not necessarily the product. It's not always about the product. Sometimes the biggest problem is the company that surrounds it that just doesn't do themselves any favors. And I think a transparency, a little bit of honesty and openness, and actually talking to the community would go an awful long way.
Well, so I had a very hard think about this today, and I worry about what is the future of Elementor. is it going to become one of these companies where they set out a name to create a page builder, they've got it there, and maybe they might go, well, how much development do we need to do? And are they going to end up becoming one of these companies where I'm making a big assumption here, but they took over Stratic. Are they now in the business to take over other companies? Are they going to try and churn out profit that way? Maybe, I don't know. Because like I said, since the Flexbox container came out, we haven't had anything major. And a comment someone made on here that I spotted, so many of the experiments that we have in Elementor are still beta experiments. I mean, they've been experiments for years. Like, when will they become final? I don't get it.
When indeed, who knows? I mean, actually, I'm going to just open up my demo site of Elementor a second, and I'm going to have a look. Let's just have a look at the actual experimental features and see how many of them are still experimental. Because much the same as yourself, I'm kind of curious to see how many, because I mean, there's an awful lot of experimental features, and I'm not the biggest fan of experimental features being just that, experimental and being open for everybody to kind of use. To me, that's a little bit of asking for trouble, but I can kind of understand, I suppose, in some ways. So yeah, so this is a test site that I've got set up that is running, as far as I'm aware. There might be some updates, but this was updated yesterday. So this is the experiment section, and as you can see, ongoing experiments. We've got asset loading, CSS loading, inline. I mean, some of these you kind of think really should be finalized by now. I mean, inline font icons, alpha, custom breakpoints. How long did custom breakpoints actually get released in this? I mean, that's going back last year, isn't it?
Well, it's just like, I mean, look, if you carry on going down, I mean, some of these, they've been out for so long. Oh no, that was it. Yeah, they've been out for so long. They should just be like, they shouldn't be experiments anymore. And I do find that a lot of people don't ever go to this tab because they get worried about it. And I feel like that. I think we need to, if you want to leave, half of them can be left as experiments because they are still experiments, but the other ones underneath that are now stable, they should be in the first. So when you go to settings, the very first tab we have, which is, where you can set your colors and your fonts to be default, whatever that tab is called. I can't remember what it's called now. Yeah, they're very general. That's it. Yeah. They should be there now because a lot of people miss out on that. But again, because we don't have a roadmap, because we don't know the reasons why is it still an experiment, because that's the other thing. Why is it still an experiment?
Yeah.
Is there a bug we don't know about?
Yeah.
Does it need like stakeholders to go, like the Bank of England interest rate? They all have the motion. What is the reason?
The eyes to the left, the knees to the right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. But it just kind of goes to show the number of things there. I mean. But you I know that there's been the sort of argument that there's more than just one department of coders or the developers in Elementor. And that makes total sense. Of course it does. There's going to be different departments for dealing with different aspects of it. But why is any kind of resources, or why are any kind of resources being pushed towards the hello theme header and footer? Well, surely the whole point of hello was that it was basically just to keep WordPress happy, that there was a theme installed and you could drop your logo and your tagline and your favicon, and other than that there really was nothing else. So why do we need headers and footers?
I think that was one of the most pointless features to bring out, because I felt like one of the whole points of why you want to encourage people to go to Elementor Pro was so that you had the header footer templates and all of that. But it made no sense to me, and I even tried it and I didn't like it at all. I found that it was like it wasn't the greatest. Yeah, it was like you're actually creating bigger problems for people with this, the way they did it, and it was like you're now pushing people towards Astra in a way as well. Yeah. So I think I said this on the last chat, but what they really need to do is have a user base. So they'll have their developers, they have their key decision makers, but who are they talking to about the features and what they're planning and whatever? Who is it just within a secret little room, or do they have like a base of actual users, experts, people in the know? Who are they speaking to? And I have this feeling that I know from working in technical departments how sometimes they think they know it all. They think they know what's the best thing, and they develop something, and I'm sat there shaking my head going, no, 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 nobody wants that, nobody wants that.
Yeah.
And guess what? Nobody wanted it, but they don't care because they're just stuck in their mindset of, well, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But they're not doing any proper market research.
No, the thing that I know that I've had a couple of people sort of reach out to me, not so much now, so things may have changed, I don't know. But probably not that long ago, maybe 6 to 8 months ago, for people that were official sort of beta testers for alpha and beta testers. And they were giving feedback about features saying like, look, you were releasing this now into the wild, as it were. It is not ready. You need to hold off a couple of weeks and make sure that everything is in place before you do it. And they weren't listening to the beta testers. So you kind of think, why are you asking people to beta test a product? And I'm not talking about like you and I that are kind of going on then testing this out with the developers edition. I'm talking people that were literally, their kind of role was they were helping Elementor on an official capacity to beta test. So why have people there that are giving you honest, genuine feedback based upon their experimentation, based upon their experience and their experiences? And then you're just going, we're going to release it anyway. Surely that just means that, A, you just undermine your relationship because they think you have no value in us. We're taking our time for no money and you're not valuing our feedback, and it's important key feedback. And then you're doing your own thing. So you kind of think, well, there's already, like I say, and one thing that's kind of occurred to me a couple of times and it's been brought up, is there a difference between a cultural difference and a cultural business difference between, I mean, we know that Elementor is an Israel-based company, and we know that when you look at different parts of the world, there's very different sort of ways in handling business relationships, and all those kinds of things. Is there one of those things that's kind of lost in translation, that the way the business is actually operated over in that part of the world, in Israel and so on, is different in various different ways to what we are used to in the Western world, or whatever you want to kind of call it? So, I mean, are there factors that we don't necessarily take into consideration that actually are influencing how things are handled, including relationships?
Maybe, possibly, but I was going to give you a bit of an example in that I worked in the NHS. I worked in a department which they were very strong in promoting how much we work together, how we support each other, we invest in our staff, we look after, we do everything to embrace technology and innovation and blah, 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 blah. But honestly, behind the scenes, they didn't give two crapolas about what anyone really thought or what staff thought. They did what the top dog wanted to do. And if they said, we do that, I mean, look, we had to do charts once for hospitals, and everyone is used to line charts and bar charts, but the top dog wanted bubbles. So we had to do bubbles. Everyone hated it. So it's for me, it's a bit like there could be a culture change, or the way they decide, or, do they all have a say? Is it joint up thinking, or does one person call the shots and you've all just got to fall in line? That might exist, but I do wonder about, like, is it similar to like where I've worked before, where we might make out that we're all in it together, but deep down there's only a few people that decide, and if they're not on the ground with the designers and developers, if they're not the people watching these kind of live chats or hearing the noise or concerns, or why are people going to Bricks? Why are they going to Gutenberg or Divi or wherever? If they're not talking and understanding those reasons, then they're going to continuously make the wrong decisions.
Well, it kind of makes me curious, because I know when someone signs up for the Facebook group, it tells me, whatever's in their bio, I can see their bio, and they've got to be approved to join the group. And I would say there's probably currently, anywhere between sort of 35 and 50 employees for Elementor that are part of my Facebook group. And you can't tell me that the whole reasoning behind it, because I've never seen pretty much any of them, other than maybe one or two, but then they were involved in the WPTuts kind of thing before they become an Elementor employee. So there's a difference there. But I've never, to my knowledge, seen any one of them actually comment. So the only reason that they've joined that group is to monitor the comments, the feedback, and the sentiment on Elementor and what we are saying about it, which is total business sense. Always monitor what's going on in the community. But this, again, is one of those things that kind of feels really frustrating. If you're monitoring it and you're listening to it and you're seeing what's going on and the sentiment and how people feel about you as a company, not an individual, why are you doing nothing? Or why do you appear to be doing nothing? Because all the different things that people are saying and the different things like that, and like you say, doing live chats and live streams like this where we have conversations and so on, there's obviously an underlying thread which you can't tell me that you haven't become aware of over the last year, 18 months, of how people feel about the future of Elementor, the direction, the lack of direction, the lack of roadmap, and those kinds of things. So what's the point in going to the time and effort of doing that, but not then taking anything on board? Just kind of feels a little bit strange and pointless.
Yeah, there is growing frustration, and I've got a sneaky feeling that come tomorrow morning, my Elemental licenses will be rescinded now that they've watched this chat. Oh god, my account will be deleted and other stuff. But no, it's just there is growing frustration. When I first started using.
Don't worry, you can have half of mine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh, well, there you go. We'll work it out. But when I first started using Elementor, there was a little bit of noise. But to be honest, there was noise with every page builder. But it is growing. It is growing now. And, I've said it a couple of times already now in this live chat. Since Flexbox Container, we haven't had a game-changing feature come out. And the fact that Container is still not in beta version yet, it just makes me go, I would love to be proved wrong. I would love that when Elementor Pro version 4 comes out, they're like, ha, we led you along. Here's your mega menu, here's your loops, here's your conditional formatting, and here's extra stuff. In fact, what my challenge to Elementor is give us something we weren't expecting. I don't mean number scrubbing. That doesn't go into the same category, right?
Surely it does.
Give us something that we never thought was possible. That's what I think we really want right now, isn't it? Because even when they do bring out the mega menu, what if it doesn't satisfy us completely? We're going to feel a little bit dejected. Or if we get something that isn't groundbreaking, we're going to go, oh, is that it? Yeah, it's a mega menu, but no, it could have been better, couldn't it? So for me now, the anticipation is there that when they do bring it out, it better be bloody good. Otherwise, we're still going to go, well, we got it, but...
But I will say track record dictates that that's not going to be the case. Because if you look at most of the time when features have been brought out, I mean, a perfect example is going to be the second phase of WooCommerce integration. And we talked about this on a recent live stream, the two of us. And it's like, they brought it out, but what they basically brought out was two slightly different skins, and that's pretty much all you can do. You can change the typography, the colors, and so on. And then you look at something like what used to be called Woolentor and Woolomentor, and you could turn fields on and off. You could reorganize every single part of it. You could take bits out. You could build your pages using those core blocks that every single WooCommerce page like that has. And Elementor gave us this really half-assed, poor excuse for something that just allows you can literally just get cart flows, for example, and you can install the free version of that and get 2 or 3 different checkouts that look better.
Yeah.
So you may as well just install something like that and have a nicer looking checkout as opposed to just using the core features. And this has historically been the problem, is when they do release something, it always feels like it's just half of it or a third of it, and you have to wait another 6 months to 12 months to get the bit that makes it truly useful. And just like I struggle to understand the logic behind, again, this goes back to that transparency thing. If you just say, look, we are working on the checkout process, the cart, the accounts, all those kinds of things, but please bear with us, because when we release this, we want this to be the only thing you need to be able to totally customize WooCommerce, the cart page, the checkout page, the account page, and also what we've already had, the product page and the archive page. You've got everything you need and it can look amazing. But we don't get that. And I think that transparency, again, to go back to what I said earlier on, would have a massive impact upon people's patience for the features. And obviously they've got to back that up. They've got to then actually release the results. And, it is that kind of mega menu that you just look at and go, I no longer need to use another mega menu plugin. That's all I need. But I really don't think we'll get that. I'm hopeful to be surprised. And there's one thing I do want to reiterate. I was talking to Imran about this earlier on, and I've said this in previous videos where I've kind of pulled up Elementor. I don't want Elementor to be a failure. I don't make the videos like I did today to be something where I go like, this is great now. Elementor, they're on the downward spiral. They're going to fail. The reason I make a lot of these videos and the reason we have these kinds of conversations live is because we want, and I'm speaking for myself, I know when I spoke to Imran earlier on, we want Elementor to up their game to become the page builder that they originally were becoming. Prior to version 3, they were innovative, they were passionate, they were involved in the community, and they were doing things that no one else was doing. The theme builder, dynamic content, so easy to integrate all these different tools. It was exciting. And then whether it's a case of the sort of venture capital was involved, and then suddenly instead of them being their own entity, they were answerable to the funding gods up in the sky, they changed. And with that change has become stagnation, it's become a lack of innovation, it's become a lack of transparency, there's no clear direction in where they're going, and they don't feel like they're listening to us as a community and the people that put the money in their pockets. Because at the end of the day, I don't get any discount other than the same as anybody else that early adopted, the 50% discount. I pay every single year for my license for Elementor because I have to maintain that for my own sites and for client sites. So I'm getting exactly the same treatment as everybody else. Probably worse, actually, because I kind of hold their feet to the fire. But that's the whole point. And this is why I wanted Imran on tonight, is because we may have different opinions, but I think one thing that we are sharing is our frustration for it not being what we think and what we believe it can be. And that's the thing that frustrates us the most, is we wanted to succeed. We wanted to be the page builder that we envisaged it to be, if that makes sense. So if anybody's kind of shooting me for thinking all you're doing is you're just slagging off Elementor for fun, there's a reason.
No, I'm going to add on. No, I'm going to add on to that. I'm just Ronald's comment that just came. It just made me crack up as I was reading it. So Ronald the Rook, his comment on the chat there about apprehension. But yeah, I mean, look, I live and breathe Elementor, and if ever there came a day where I suddenly felt like I was going to leave Elementor, it would have to be. It would have to be something pretty major to make me leave at the moment. So even though I am whinging quite a bit about it, I just use Elementor, so all these comments that I'm making as well, I'm trying to put across that if I, as a passionate Elementor lover, am feeling a little bit unhappy, how does everyone else feel who is not as passionate about Elementor? And I think that's something they really do need to start considering, because like, some people that are on my live chats know that I now have a license to Bricks. I'm going to play around. I'm going to have a look at it. If I suddenly start to feel like, I might do a website with Elementor, or maybe this website I'll do with Bricks, I might start doing that. And I never thought I would come to that point in the last year or so where I would do that. I thought, no, I'm just pure Elementor. That's all I'll use.
I've broken you.
Well, that sounds worse than it actually. But no, it's but it is like but I just felt like I want to do more, and if Bricks is saying you can do so much without in terms of optimization, I have to take notice of that. I'm always doing videos on page speed and performance and this and that, and I'm like, well, you know what? If I can do it where it makes it easier for me to maintain the website for my clients going forward as well, why wouldn't I consider another tool? However, I am an Elementor developer through and through, but I really, really want. I really hope they are watching. I really hope they're watching. I really hope that they reach out to me or Paul or anyone else and just say, hey, can we have a quick chat? An honest chat, an honest conversation about what do they need to do, you know, or allow us to have that Q&A with them about what, like, I'm going to say it again. Who said number scrubbing was important? Who said it deserved to be a feature? Whenever they do features, they have key feature, and then they have down here tweaks and little fixes. Number scrubbing should have been down there, right at the bottom there. Like, oh, by the way, you can do number scrubbing now, you know. But I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a code snippet that removes number scrubbing from Elementor. There's got to be a way to do it.
Good, the functions file. Functions.
Yes.
Remove scrubber.
Yeah.
We're not going down that route. We're not going down that route at all. No. Like you say, I think that's the point, and I think a lot of people are saying the same thing, is that they do want Elementor to succeed. And as fun as it is to bash them, and to be honest, like I say, today's video was a lot of fun. But while it was just fun and poking fun, I think it's a very real sort of overview of how people feel about pointless things like that. To me, if you look at a normal changelog, you'll have important feature, important feature, important feature, interface tweaks or updates or tweaks or enhancements, and that's where you'll have things like number scrubber, the language kind of option, which I think the language thing does make sense. That's quite useful, but they are the kind of things that you put before the bug fixes. Do you know what I mean? They're not the key important things. But I think one thing that you will find it strange when you take a look at working with bricks. But once you do, I think what you'll find is there's a lot of things in there that you'd probably be in a position where you go, actually, I'm not ready to change. It's not where I want to be to do some of the things that I need. And if you need specific tools. But I think the big difference with a tool like bricks, and not just bricks, I mean, Breakdance, as much as I didn't want to like what Breakdance was doing for various different reasons, when I tested out the alpha build, to me, that was already... There's some really good things in there already. You know, it's releasing with dynamic support, with conditional logic, with a loop build. All those things are already included in an alpha build. And yes, like I said earlier on, it's with the ability to look at what the competition are doing and bring that out to start off with. And that's fine. But the reality of it is, when you have those tools that have all those things you need, loyalty is great, but loyalty only goes so far. And when you kind of become disenfranchised with that particular product, company, or whatever, you'll walk. You know, we all do the same thing. We vote with our pockets. We vote with our wallets. And you will walk.
Well, look, it comes down to... I was a big Photoshop user, massive Photoshop user since 2005. You know, I used to do a lot of digital art as well. And then Photopea came out. And I started going, well, Photopea kind of does a lot of what I do. Now, I just tend to use Canva, cheap and cheerful. And so I've gone from using a market-leading tool to just messing around with Canva whenever I want. And it's like, and it's not just price-driven. It's because it satisfied what I needed to use it for. And for a good 2 or 3 years, Elementor has been a firm foundation of building websites for me. I would hate to think that in 3 years' time I'm now using something else. But if that's the way it goes, let me give you a rubbish analogy. I used to drink Coke Zero. Now I couldn't care. I drink Pepsi Max. Who would have known? Anyone who knows me as a child will know I used to hate Pepsi drinks. But now I live on them because times change, our needs change. And if something satisfies that need, we're humans, we're not afraid to change, you know. And I think, you know, I would hate to think that in 3 years' time, we're no longer even talking about Elementor. We're here with our white beards, really old, dingy hermits, talking about concrete or whatever takes over bricks.
Speak for yourself. Here's a good question. from, I'm assuming it's probably Mark, but if not, it might be Barbara, but from Wiki Designs, what will be the final straw for you to stop using Elementor in the future? I'm going to let you have that one first, and I'll give you my opinion.
That's actually quite a tricky one, but what's gonna make me want to stop? I think if they keep continuing to fall behind other page builders in terms of development, if like in a year's time we don't have conditional calculated logic, loop building, all of these things that other builders are building, and even though you might say they are more for experts, for me, it's like the fact it's built in natively into the tool and I can just go crack on and build stuff with it, that might make me start to want to look elsewhere. Because if you only stick with a tool that only does so much and you don't experiment with code snippets and plugins, you will get clients or people interested in you who want to work with you and they'll say, I want to do X, Y, Z, but you won't know how to do that. Because you've always stayed working with that tool. Whereas if you had played around and started to understand dynamic content, custom fields and loop and all of this stuff, you're probably going to be more prepared to take on the bigger challenges. Because as businesses, we all want to scale, right? We all want to grow bigger. And you're not going to retire or have a healthy retirement just building basic websites. So if they don't start to up their game with their developments and the solutions they bring out and other tools do, I might have to start looking elsewhere because, I don't do a lot. I don't do like websites with loop building or anything like that. I want to get into that, but I'm not going to have the ambition to do that if I stay with Elementor because the facility's not there. Straight off the bat, yes, I could use plugins and stuff, but you always feel more comfortable when it's natively built in because then you don't have to worry so much about incompatibility. But that's just my take.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we were talking about this before we came on air, which is you've kind of got this chicken and egg situation when it comes to Elementor and this ecosystem that's around it. You've got Elementor that has a lot of great features, but it also has a lot of holes. Like we were talking about conditional logic, loop building, mega menus, those three kind of key things. So you end up having to use third-party tools to do what you need. And then when an update rolls around and your site potentially falls over or your client sites fall over, and then you go and vent your frustrations, the first thing that people say when you go onto the Facebook groups and so on is, what third-party plugins you have in? That's the reason why it's broken, because they haven't updated. And this is where the chicken and egg situation comes in. We don't want to have to rely upon third-party tools to do what a lot of people would consider to be fundamentals. A lot of people want a mega menu. Lots of people want the loop builder. Conditional logic, I don't think, is something that even is an advanced feature. I think that's a very basic feature. There's lots of reasons why you'd want to use simple conditional logic. But the problem comes in where, well, if you're not going to give us the tools we've got to use, that we need to use to kind of fulfill the job, we have to rely on third-party tools. And then when third-party tools cause a problem with an Elementor update, well, whose fault is it? Is it your fault for not actually giving us the tools we'd want and are making us rely upon third-party tools? Is it the third-party tools manufactured, to sort of coders for not being kept up to date with the beta releases? Where's the problem? But the end result is the only people that actually suffer at the end of the day is us as people that work with clients and our client. So it's either a case of you have to roll back, you have to have a staging set, you have to test those bits and pieces out before you even get to the point of running it. Well, that's great if you have 10 clients and there's an update rolls out. Well, I mean, I don't know how many clients you've got, Imran, but let's just say you've got 100 clients. How realistic is it when an Elementor update rolls out and you've got some third-party tools included in most of those sites? How realistic is it for you to go and set up a staging site for every single one of those and run a backup beforehand to then go ahead, update, go and check as much as you humanly can before you roll out a live update? It's not viable, is it?
No, it's not. And that's one of the reasons why I actually purposely try to make sure we don't use many third-party plugins for that exact reason, because I hate then any incompatibility. But there have been occasions where we've had people who've wanted to work with us to build a website, but I just know it's going to be extra work required, and I'm a bit nervous about the extra additional plugins we're going to use for the size of the work, because it's not native with Elementor. And I always kind of go, it might work, but the minute there's like an Elementor update that changes something, like the fact we don't know the future exactly when the final container, if it ever comes out, does come out, am I going to end up in a world of pain trying to fix an expensive client's website? Because, is touch wood, it's not happened to me yet. Every time so far, we've been very lucky with all the websites we've built, but I don't want that because it's a headache, and that is why we just keep saying make it native. A lot of people do criticize me sometimes when I put stuff out about this. They go, yeah, but if Elementor did it natively, third-party plugins would lose business. And I go, well, no, not necessarily. Elementor will do it their way. The third-party plugin does it their way, so there is still healthy competition, and a developer or a designer can pick and choose, well, do they want to do that or that or that? Because, to be honest, you could say that there's 20 plugins out there that do the same thing, but you get to choose which one satisfies your aim. So all I'm saying is, Elementor, build it in. Because what really gets me mad, and I'm trying to stay calm here, with all the COVID, but what really gets me mad is when you look at all of these add-ons, happy add-ons, premium add-ons, essential add-ons, all of these add-ons, they all have the odd little feature that I kind of look at and go, why is that not inside Elementor already? Why are they doing that and they haven't got it? Why is it they can switch off widgets and stop them loading and we don't have that yet in Elementor? Why? And I don't know. I don't know. I just wish that they would invest a little bit more, pump a bit of money in, work with some of the developers from other companies maybe, and just build things in natively, because we would love it. We would absolutely love it.
I got to pick up on one thing that you kind of said there, though. That's if you're kind of taking the sort of third-party developers' sort of hard work and bringing that into the core version of Elementor. But to probably sound quite harsh, but if you were just basically building your business model on a third-party company's structure, ecosystem, whatever it is, that's part of the risk of doing business. You are building it on something that or you should realistically know, could change in the future. When you were taking a look at what's missing right now, and what if Elementor, you do your research, you go, right, what if Elementor actually said they're going to be bringing out, but they don't know when, and there's a lot of talk about it. Let's just use the loop builder as an example. Well, any custom skin, when that was released, I've talked to the developer, that was never meant to be a plugin that was put out there. That was something that fitted a need that he had in his business. And he just kind of put it out there and it took off. Now, at some point, he probably knows that that's going to be integrated, that technology is going to be integrated into the core. Well, that's part of your due diligence to start off with. If you don't do your due diligence, you can't then go cry when Elementor turn around and go, well, actually, that's always been a plan to be part of it, because that's a core function inside most of the page builders now. And we need to have that. So it sounds harsh, but I think the reality is that's part of doing business. I mean, it's, for example, like when you run a web design agency, web design business, and you basically put your websites onto a hosting plan, SiteGround, if I'm not mistaken. Well, what if SiteGround tomorrow turned around and said, right, we're actually not going to do hosting for single websites. We're going to go to, sort of, if you haven't got 100 sites with us, we're going to stop doing single site licenses. You'd be bummed. But the reality is, you go, okay, fair enough. I was building on someone else's business model, and they've changed their business model. It's frustrating. It's annoying. But it's part of doing business. It's the risk you take. And I don't think that's any difference when it comes to if you're building around that. In the same way that, like with Apple, for example, with the App Store and all the hoo-ha about the amount of money they take from it. Well, when you sign up to putting your app on the App Store, what you're doing is you're tapping into the Apple brand, the other things that go with the App Store, and the benefits that go with it. And part of that is that you are losing 30%, I believe, to Apple. Whether you like it or not, that's what you signed up to at the beginning. And to get into that ecosystem, into that structure, into that sort of whole economy, that was the cost of doing business. And I think the same thing really does apply when it comes to third-party companies jumping on the back of the API for something like Elementor. But that's not even answering the question that Mark asked us. What would make us stop using it? So for me, I think I don't really use it that much. I mean, I'm in a position where I don't really work with new clients, so I don't really have a problem. So I mean, Imran, this is probably more where you are still, actively working with clients. Is there one thing that would make you go, I've had enough, I'm moving to something else?
I think if we had a repeat of what we had when version 3 came out, where it just knocked colours and styles all over the place, and there was tons of incompatibility issues as well with some basic plugins, that would probably push me a little bit, because I know they give advance notice to lots of third-party plugins about an update and changes coming behind the scenes, so there is time for the other third-party plugins to do their testing or whatever. But sometimes there is stuff within Elementor itself that breaks, and I always kind of go, how did they miss that? How did they not spot that? And it's like they're waiting on us to report it to them before they find it, and I always feel like they're not doing good testing. So I'm not saying they must test Elementor with third party. I mean just within Elementor. Sometimes stuff breaks, and touch wood lucky, I've been lucky and okay with nothing major. But what you don't want is you have a big major client, great recurring income on a monthly maintenance plan, and then something happens and it breaks. And like I've said already, and like you've said, some people are using the Flexbox containers. You don't know what's coming out in the future yet, and it's all of a sudden your website might go completely dead. Or what if when we get to Elementor 4 they say, hey, the final version is here, but section and columns are gone. That's it. Dead and buried. So if you update, every single website that you update will now be automatically converted. Well, holy crapola, we are in trouble now, because when you do the convert, you have a container within a container, which isn't great, and you've got to go through every website. So I'm a little bit like, I hope that even when they get to the final version, they allow us to make the choice of one or the other. Let us make the choice of what we're going to use. So if we've got websites built 4 years ago, they can stay in section and columns unless you're actively going to go in and modify it. But if we get forced into, no, you have to change, well, then I might have to kind of go, right, no, I'm going to go somewhere else now, because, I don't want to go through hundreds of websites and start to convert them.
No, it's a weird one. I mean, and I think the whole thing is at some point there's going to be that sort of mass moving over. But I can't imagine it's going to be that difficult to carry on and maintain, at least for an interim period, to maintain both the sections, columns, and intersections and so on, and the option for containers. Surely there's not that much code differences that need to be in there for this sort of like the legacy layout options. That's the whole point of what's going on at the moment. They've said that they're not going to force you over.
Then again, thinking about it from a business point of view, if they were to say to us in September, you now have 6 months to move over everything to container because sections and columns are dead, I could go back to my clients and charge them now for doing the conversion. So from a business point of view, it could be great money. So go for it, Elementor.
Yeah, make us more money. Make some money back from what you lost. You lost so many people. Anyway. Okay, so Andrew, we're going to ask your question, and thank you very much for actually being able to join us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you as always. So, which other builder would you have in addition to Elementor at this moment? I'm going to answer this one first, so you can have a little think, because I'm pretty sure you're probably going to. I know what you're going to say, but for
Yeah.
me, I mean, there is only really one other alternative right now, and that would have to be bricks. Oxygen is a solid tool, but I think the problem with that is whether we like it or not, that is going to die a slow death, because when you've got the company behind it saying it's already using a legacy platform, that doesn't really bode well for the future of it, especially when now the efforts of the company, not specifically the development team, because there's two different teams, but the company's efforts are going to be on what they consider they can make more money on, which is going to be breakdowns, which is a recurring business model, as opposed to the LTD, which is what Oxygen is. But like I say, for me, currently, I would say bricks is definitely the way to go as the second builder. Is it 100% there yet? No, absolutely not. But then, like I keep saying, I keep arguing with different people in comments and stuff, neither is Elementor. You know, it's like, yes, bricks has a loop builder, it has conditional logic coming to it, it has all these extra things, and Elementor doesn't. But then Elementor has some things that we use that bricks doesn't have yet. But I feel more confident in the fact that bricks will add that shorter term than I feel that Elementor will add in the things that's missing right now longer term, if that makes sense. So for me, my real kind of excitement is definitely for bricks. However, that being said, I'm really more excited at this point in time for what you can do with tools like Generate Press and Generate Blocks and what you do. I mean, I don't like Gutenberg itself. The core Gutenberg, I think, is really poor, a really poor experience. But when you combine it with some solid tools, in the same way that WordPress itself is a pretty poor experience unless you want to create a blog and some simple pages, you're putting a page builder on top of it to create these amazing looking designs and layouts. So it's not WordPress that's doing the good job, it's the page builder you slap on top of it. And I think the same thing goes when it comes to Gutenberg. Gutenberg is great if you want to create blog posts, but if you want to create a design, then you have to bolt on, things like Generate Blocks and so on. So for me, that's kind of where I'm really seeing the future going, because when you look at something like Generate Blocks, and I won't say so much Cadence, because I was watching David McCann's video on Cadence the other day where you compare Cadence, Generate Block, and what's it called? I can't think of the one. Stackable. And one of the kind of things that he leveled about Cadence was that that's very much along the lines of pre-built widgets, modules, whatever you want to kind of call them. Whereas a tool like Generate Blocks is a lot more a case of, right, there's all the components. It's like a Lego without the instructions. You can build pretty much anything you bloody want with it. You just have to use your brain to do it, as opposed to you literally go, I want to put a so-and-so widget in, click, and there's my widget. So if you want rapid design, Cadence every day of the week. If you want the tools, the core tools to basically just think, okay, actually what I want to build, and this is how I would go about it, Generate Blocks. But they are getting much more page builder-esque if you pair them with their native theme. It's a lot better back-end experience over what we've been historically used to, or what you're used to if you've used just sort of Gutenberg itself. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. It would be bricks, or using Gutenberg alongside something like Generate Press and Generate Blocks, or Stackable and Blocksy, those kinds of things. But Imran, yourself, what are your thoughts on this? What would be the addition to Elementor, not the replacement, but the addition to Elementor? Do you have one, or are you still sort of firmly in the Elementor only camp?
Unfortunately, I am still firmly in the Elementor camp. However, on watching footage and stuff from yourself and from Karipos, who keeps mentioning it every day to me, and from others, and George as well, who's mentioned it as well, I'm very much looking forward to trying out bricks, and I fully accept that it is still new, and I will excuse any deficiencies because it is still in development and still growing. But I'm interested in seeing how that one goes, and in some way I'm kind of excited about seeing something as a fledgling still and watching it develop, because sometimes I wasn't using Elementor when it first came out, unlike some people that have seen it really develop and grow. So it'll be nice to see. It's going to be one of those things where I am going to look at the roadmap, I am going to look at the upvoting, and I am going to be keeping track of, well, when the next time they do more features after the beta 1.5, how true do they stay to that? Are they sticking to what they set out? So I am very much Elementor. I mean, at the moment, even though we've said quite a bit about it, there isn't enough to lure me away yet, but I am very much excited because anyone here who has not looked at the Bricks website and what they say it can do, I must say, if I was a web designer now and I did not have a tool of choice, and someone said to me, oh yeah, there's Divi, there's Bricks, there's this, there's breakdance and all of that, what they say on that Bricks website, on that very first page in the features, is very enticing. It's very, it's very seductive in what it says it can do. When you get to the features about the optimization and all of that, you can't help but sit there and go, is this really true? Are they just having me on here? So I'm excited. I literally am honestly excited to be testing it out.
I think this is the thing at the moment is, as you've just kind of said yourself, you've pretty much only really used Elementor. So you've never really taken a look at some of the other tools that are out there. Not to necessarily. I think the only time you kind of really get a feel for it is when you build something with it. You can play around, you can create a template, you can create a layout, and you can have a little bit of fun with it. But I think only when you have a real use case to get stuck in and find out what the annoyances are, the limitations, the things that you would want it to do, that's when you get a real feel for it. But to kind of go over to the Bricks side of things. And like I say, I'm not trying to sell you and push you to Bricks in the slightest. You stay with Elementor, and that's perfectly fine. I will break you. But when you kind of, like you say, when you take a look at the sort of the roadmap, which is evident for everybody, you can kind of see what's currently in progress, bearing in mind what's already included. But you can see conditional logic, custom breakpoints, CSS grid layout for the container elements. They've already got the container, divs, and sections. So it's already using a fully div kind of flexbox model. But CSS grid is coming. And if it's in progress, that usually means that that's going to be in the next release. So you could probably semi-guarantee that'll be 1.6. And 1.5 is already in beta anyway. That's kind of pretty exciting inside there. And then you take a look at next, your mobile menu builder, your pop-up mega menu. That's all I'm going to say, mega menu.
I know, that's what I mean. And that's what I mean. When you see that and you start to go, well, you know, they're taking notice. Yep. They're obviously aware of demand and what people want. So let's see what they do. And that's why I want to play around with it, see what we get now. In fact, I am purposely not using the 1.5 beta. I'm going to be playing around with the current version. Then I'm going to have a look at beta. Then I'm going to hopefully when all these other features come out. So I get a real feeling. Because you've got to be honest, there'll be loads of people out there that are maybe afraid of using beta versions because it's not the final version. So it's getting a really good feel for like... And if I feel, because I've got licenses, you know what? This would be fine for a basic website.
I think you might be. I think you might be surprised how much further you could go over a basic website. I mean, I don't know.
That's what I mean. I think it is. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the kind of levels of complexity you go to when you're building a site. Let's take your sort of your listing website out, which I know you use a dedicated theme and that for that.
Yeah.
But when you build a website, I mean, are there specific things that you think actually I really have to have that? Like, you know, some designers always do their pop-up. They use their pop-up builder to create their menu system and things like that because it doesn't have mega menu or whatever. Are there specific things that you look at Bricks from what your understanding is right now and you go, it's good, but it doesn't have this or these key features that I absolutely have to build something?
No. Believe it or not, as long as it's intuitive to do this kind of stuff you just said with pop-ups or drag and drop or anything, as long as it's intuitive, I'm not bothered. The thing, though, that is pulling me towards Bricks is the claims they make about the speed and the optimization. That is really pulling me in, because I put the effort in to make it work, but if somehow a lot of that effort is almost done for you as well, I think that's great, because knowing that sometimes you build a website and then you hand over to a client, they don't want a maintenance plan, they want to look after it themselves. You know that you can give it to them and you feel a little bit more assured. You know, I'm one of those people where even though I might have nothing to do with that website, 2 years down the line, I still like to go and have a look and go, oh, it's still working, it's still okay, it's still doing well. Yeah. It's a nice feeling. So if I knew that they could, I mean, look, come on, right, okay. When you hand over a directory website to a client and they are letting people around the world upload images, 99% of those images are like 59 megabytes in size, because none of them bother to compress or convert or whatever. And I know that bricks won't solve the problem, but if it does something just to help that website, that's what's pulling me towards it. So I'm very easy on features as long as it's intuitive. So yes, I like the way Elementor do their pop-up builder. I like it. I love, pop-up off canvas menu. I like it. But if I can still do it in a slightly different way, well, I'll be happy. It's like there's a million ways to make a cup of tea. There probably isn't. I don't even drink tea, so that was I don't even know why I mentioned it. I don't like tea.
There's probably at least 5. That'll do. Now, I've got to answer this question, because I'm pretty sure you're probably going to have an answer to this one as well, but I'm going to put this one up. You guys want everything in a builder, and yet you complain about builder bloat. No, you're absolutely and utterly wrong there. What we want in a builder are the core tools that you need. What we don't want in a builder are things like Lottie animations, page transitions, and all the kind of crap that really most users have no interest for. And if they do, get a third-party plugin to plug into it. What we want are the things that allow us to build websites effectively, quickly, and do the things we need. We don't need to rely upon third-party plugins to do big things, like loop builders, like mega menus, like conditional logic, and so on. So that statement is totally wrong. All I'm trying to say is not right. Would you agree?
I would, and I just want to add on to that and say, look, take Elementor Forms, right? And the fact that we have a separate PayPal widget as well in Elementor. Forminator, which is a free plugin, gives you the form and pay now with PayPal or Stripe in the form. So if you only have one item to sell in your entire website, you could put Forminator with your form, with your details, with your item, and pay now. We don't have that in Elementor. We have form, which hasn't got logic, and we got a PayPal button on its own. Surely they should be able to bring that in together. So we're not saying that we want everything. We're just saying that there's so much stuff you could do to make our lives so much easier. If you go to the Elementor Facebook group, or you go to loads of groups, one of the biggest problems that always crops up is someone going, Elementor's broke my website, Elementor's broke my website. And often it's due to incompatibility when there's an update or something. And if Elementor removed the need for us to always go and get an add-on for some stuff that should be natively built in, the amount of people that complain about Elementor breaking their website would totally massively reduce. It would totally massively reduce. So it will help their reputation out as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we got our first thumbs down, because I think I probably offended, what was his name again? I can't remember. So I do apologize if I offended you. I don't really apologize. But the reality of it is, no, we don't want everything, including the kitchen sink. What we want is the right tools for the job, and not the extra bloat and things that nobody really cares that much about. So I think there's a big, big difference between those two arguments there. And I think you need to kind of understand the differences between what we're trying to say and, those kinds of things. So let's have a little look. We're going to take 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'm going to call it a night, because, again, I want Imran to be able to go and make sure that he can grow a beard and put some twigs and things in it. If you don't understand that, it's basically because we were talking earlier on about him, but he's a hermit. Okay, well, that's
never
good to
go
know. That's good to know that we didn't offend you. So thank you very much for coming back and letting me know that. But like I say, we're not trying to offend anybody. I didn't know you had a cat. That's a random thing to say, really, wasn't it? Just saw a tail go across like a shark.
I know. It is, yes.
But I'm not the average user. Maybe not. But that's okay. Okay, so if anybody's got any more questions and you want to quickly sort of ask those, or either myself or Imran, just quickly put in #Q into the chat and we'll take a quick look at answering those if we can. So let's have a little look at some of the things that have kind of come up. Pete, let's have a look what you're saying, sir. The biggest thing about bricks, in my opinion, is that the developers focused on WCAG compliance. Not everything is compliant now, but they'll fix anything that's flagged with them, and that's huge. And yeah, I think if you are, especially these days where, things are definitely sort of tightening up when it comes to just building websites with GDPR and the sort of the American sort of like version of side of things, and like you say, accessibility and WCAG and all stuff like that. These things are definitely making our lives as web designers much, much more difficult. So yeah, anything I think that the developers can kind of do to make that something that's a little easier is definitely a good thing in my book. So, all power to Thomas and so on for actually involving themselves in making sure that those kinds of things are there. But the most important thing I need to ask...
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important thing I need to ask right now, though, is what's the cat's name?
Strider. His name is Strider. So, and we got him in 2004, and it's Aragon, Lord of the Rings. So I wanted to think of a Lord of the Rings name that wasn't very obvious. So rather than calling him Gandalf, I went for Strider. So people who like Lord of the Rings will get it.
Okay, so Helmut, this is quite interesting. We talked about this earlier on. Do you guys miss the feature to switch on and off features like some add-ons do? Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier, and I think we talked about this in the past as well. I think neither of us can kind of really understand why this isn't something that's built directly into Elementor itself, where you can not just disable the feature from the dashboard, but also disable the feature code-wise from the front end, or as much as is possible. I mean, obviously there's going to be certain limitations to what you can do. But yeah, I mean, ideally, how many of the widgets in a pro install do you actually use? I would hazard a guess 10, maybe 15 at a push. And there's 80 something in there, something like that. That's an awful lot of excess code and excess sort of stuff that we're never going to use on that project. So yeah, we definitely do. I mean, I know I do anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And I would probably say that I think about 10 sounds about, might even be less than that, when it comes to building websites. There's so many, unless the website needs it, I don't use sliders or accordions, and there'll be many websites where there's no need for a video or anything like that at all. The Facebook embed widget, who uses that widget? It doesn't even properly work, so... But yeah, and it's like we said earlier, so many add-ons, they say that it stops it loading. I've never fully tested it, to be honest. I'm never fully convinced. When you do turn it off, does it actually stop it fully adding on or loading? This cat's really ruining everything. But I think it's something that Elementor should consider, so that it just stops it loading through. And I know you could use asset cleanup, but
another plugin.
I'm always unsure about the asset cleanup with touching anything to do with Elementor, because I'm always worried it's going to break something in the background. Yeah,
I can't disagree with you there. I think one of the only plugins that I kind of know of that I think when you disable the features, it actually disables it front and back end is Happy Add-ons. I'm pretty sure that was one of their sort of selling features, was that when you disable a feature, it disables it completely. Yeah. So yeah, that would be quite good. Okay, we've got quite a few different things. A couple of quick questions. We're going to take two. Are you okay for time, Imran? Are you okay for two questions?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. This is a good one. Tyree, should Elementor adopt the ability to visually stylize classes and IDs? In my opinion, yes, they should, because I think their implementation of classes and IDs at this point in time is incredibly basic. And when you look at something like Bricks and definitely, Oxygen, that is something that just makes global editing and global styling seconds to do once you kind of understand how all that works. And currently, the global styling and so on is okay. It's functional, but I think there's definitely room for improvement. I think the stylizing classes and IDs would be a real step in the right direction. I mean, what about yourself, Imran?
Yeah, no, nothing more to add to that, really. Yeah, I just think that, again, it's just one of these things where um, other developers, other page builders, they're looking at what the norm is and they're going, right, how can we make it more stimulating and easier to understand? And I think Elemental should just evolve, basically. Look at what others are doing and evolve. You're not copying, but it's like, you could go all the way back to the first iPhone. Before that, everyone was like, oh, what an ugly phone. Look how big it is. But it was the birth of the smartphone, So, you go with what people want and what is easier to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's have a look. What else do we have? Atif, I'm gonna end on this question though, because I think this is a good one. If the head honcho from Elementor is watching, there's one feature you would really wanted to implement like yesterday. What would it be? Go on, Imran. I'll let you take that one first.
Mega menu.
Really?
No, no. I keep saying mega menu, but it's not. No, I'm gonna change that now. I'm gonna go to conditional calculated logic in the forms.
Yeah, you wouldn't choose container?
Ooh. No, and I'll tell you why. Because even though like the whole thing about the DOM, the page speed, and what's loaded, you can still get by without it. If it was a make and break, you could still build a website with sections and columns and all of that. You can still do it. But conditional and calculated logic, you always end up having to use a different plugin or something else or whatever like that. And I just feel like there's so much opportunity and stuff you could do if you were able to just do some funky logic on a website or something, for someone. At the moment in time, even though we're all crying out for Container, the final version, you could still, right now, if you built a new website for someone brand new, you could still build it. But the minute someone says to you, oh, yeah, I want to do a calculator and I want to do X, Y, Z, you stop and go, right, okay, which solution shall we use right now? So it would be just one less headache for me. What about you?
See, the thing is, I've got two, so I've got to choose one.
No, go for both. Just tell us both.
Oh, loop builder and conditional logic. But if I had to choose just the one, if it was a case of, right, you can only have the one full stop, I would probably go for the loop builder. Because if you want to create any kind of listing site, what you currently have is so limiting, you can't put any kind of dynamic data into it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. That in itself is just kind of really limiting. So for me, it would have to be that. Conditional logic would be a pain, not having it, but I could add a third-party plugin that isn't particularly heavy-duty to do something like that. Whereas sort of building the loop builder, I think, is a key part to building listing sites and more advanced sites. So without that, I think, that would be the one, I think. Like you say, when it comes to the container, yes, it's great from, reducing code, reducing the DOM and all that kind of stuff. But we've dealt with without that being there for quite some time, and we can optimize sites in various different ways. Not ideal, but if there's only one feature, that would be the one for me, I think. And I think we'll wrap up the questions right there. So before we do disappear, Imran, if anybody in the live stream tonight doesn't know how they can find out about yourself, do you want to give 2 minutes and just let them know how they can find out yourself, your business, your YouTube channel, and so on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If you go to YouTube, just do a search for Web Squadron and you'll find our channel there. We do focus mainly on Elementor in terms of building your websites to help you, your clients. But also we talk a lot about marketing and branding and sometimes how to find clients as well. We try to find simplified ways of doing things or getting the best out of Elementor where you don't have to always go and use a third-party plugin because we know there's always going to be potential incompatibility issues further down the line. But we do also build websites. We are a web design agency. We focus on consultants and small businesses, but we do all sorts as well. So if anyone ever wants us to work with them, get in touch. Or if you have an idea for a video or you just want to have a talk with us, we do daily live chats. So it's really great that Paul invites me over to invade onto his. But we do normally at midday UK time. We have a live chat. And believe me, we talk about anything and everything. Sometimes the conversations can be quite out there with what we talk about. But yeah, if you ever want to find me, Web Squadron YouTube, I'll be there lurking somewhere on the timeline. You'll find me.
Awesome stuff. So first of all, let me just say thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening again to come and join me and get involved in the live stream, get involved in the chat, and just become part of the WP crew. It's always awesome to have you here. So before I wrap things up, just to let you, that's actually Imran. We don't want Imran's face. You want my face back again now. I'll be back live streaming again tomorrow evening. This time I've got a different guest on. I've got Carl Van Dusen from the Admin Bar joining me, and we're going to talk all about how you can make more money from web design and how you can find higher paying clients. So make sure you just come and join us tomorrow evening, same time. That's 8 p.m. British summertime or GMT +1. And like I say, we'll have Carl Van Dusen in tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to that one. But thank you very much for joining in tonight. Thank you for all the comments, the questions, the feedback. Thank you once again to Imran for joining me, and I will see you all tomorrow evening, and I will see you all very, very soon if you can't join tomorrow. Thank you very much, and take care. Look after yourselves.